The next big Senate fight is coming. Maybe it's voting rights, maybe it's abortion access, maybe it's immigration, maybe it's a nomination that melts everyone's brains on cable news. And the second it hits the floor, you'll hear one word screamed like a fire alarm: filibuster. But here's the twist. Most filibusters today aren't some senator talking for 12 hours straight. That's basically a threat. And the only way around that threat is the weird magic word called cloture. Now, if you don't know what those mean, you don't really know why Congress can't get anything done. So let's fix that. Welcome to Project Liberty, where we break down how our government actually works. Today, we're answering two questions normal people should not need a law degree to ask. What is a filibuster, actually? And how does the Senate end it? Today, we're going to cover what a filibuster is in plain English, what cloture means, and why it's basically the Senate's shut up and vote button, and what the nuclear option is, and why that sounds like a Marvel plot for a reason. So let's start with the vibe most people have. A filibuster is when a senator talks forever. Like the Mr. Smith Goes to Washington version, sweaty, dramatic, throat lozenges, doing overtime. Now that can happen, and it's called a talking filibuster, and yes, it is real. But modern filibusters are usually different. Today, the filibuster is mostly a 60-vote rule, not a 24-hour speech. So here's the simple version. In the Senate, passing most bills only needs a simple majority. That means 51 votes if everyone is there. But before you can pass a bill, you usually need to end debate. Because if debate never ends, you really never got the final vote. So the minority party can say, we're not done debating, even if what they really mean is we don't want this to pass. Now that move is the filibuster. It's not always loud, it's often just procedural, but it is powerful. Think of it like this. The Senate is Netflix, the bill is a movie, and the filibuster is your friend who refuses to stop scrolling. So you never actually hit play. Now we're not watching anything because Chad needs to read the descriptions. Chad, it's been 45 minutes. Let's go. So where does this 60-vote thing come from? One word: cloture. Cloture is a Senate procedure to end the debate. In normal English, it means, okay, wrap it up. We're voting on this now. If 60 senators vote for cloture, debate gets capped. Then the Senate moves towards the final vote. So when people say this bill needs 60 votes, they often mean this bill needs 60 votes to get past a filibuster, not necessarily 60 votes to pass at the end. That's the key difference here. Now let's talk about what happens in real life. A majority party introduces a bill, the minority says, we will filibuster, and then the majority does the math. Do we have the 60 votes for cloture? If yes, the filibuster threat fails. If no, the bill is basically stuck. This is why every big Senate fight turns into a race to 60, not 51, 60. And that's why headlines always sound like sports standings. Can they get to 60? Who's a yes? Who's a maybe? Who's concerned? Concerned is Washington speak for I want attention and leverage. So let's clear up a common myth. A filibuster does not always mean someone is physically speaking nonstop, although you do see that sometimes. In today's Senate, it's often a silent filibuster, meaning the mere threat is enough because everyone knows that the 60-vote cloture hurdle is sitting there like a brick wall. So why don't they force people to actually talk? Because the Senate's rules have evolved over time, basically, and both parties have liked the filibuster when they're in the majority. So it's like dating. When you're the one being slow to commit, you call it taking your time. And when the other person is slow to commit, you call it wasting my life. Same behavior, different power position. Now, sometimes the majority tries to make it painful. They can keep a Senate in session, make people show up, and force procedural votes. But the core issue remains. Without 60 votes for cloture, you can't reliably get to the finish line. So how does the Senate end the filibuster? There are basically three paths you'll hear about in the next big showdown. Path one is the normal way. Get 60 votes for cloture. That's it. That's the whole trick. So when you see senators huddling, negotiating, and finding bipartisan support, this is why. They're hunting for the extra votes, and they're trying to hit that 60. Now, path two is using special rules that avoid the filibuster. The most famous example is budget reconciliation. This is a process for tax and spending bills. In plain English, it's a fast lane for budget stuff. and it usually only needs a simple majority. But reconciliation has strict limits. You can't just shove anything in there. The Senate referee, called the parliamentarian, helps interpret what qualifies. In plain English, they are the rulebook nerd at the table. Necessary and feared. Path 3 is one that everyone argues about on Twitter at 2 a.m., the nuclear option. The nuclear option is when the Senate changes how its rules are interpreted. So the cloture takes fewer votes for certain things, usually 51 instead of 60. This is mostly used for nominations like judges and executive branch officials. It's called the nuclear option because it blows up the old expectations. And once you do it, you can't really pretend you didn't. It's like telling the group chat, I'm done with this drama, and then posting a 38-part Instagram story titled The Truth. All right, now let's do a quick reality check. The nuclear option is not a button that magically passes a bill. It just changes the rules of the game, and it has consequences. If you weaken the filibuster today, the other party can use that tomorrow. So senators think about it like it's lending your car keys. Sure, it helps you right now, but later you may watch your car leave the driveway without you. So let's run the next big Senate fight scenario. Pick your headline: voting rules, abortion access, immigration, or nomination battle. Now, step 1, the bill hits the Senate floor. Step 2, the minority signals a filibuster. Sometimes they say it openly, sometimes it's implied, but everybody knows. Step 3, the majority files for cloture. That's them saying, we want this debate to end. Now, step 4, the Senate votes on cloture. If it gets to 60, debate ends, and if it doesn't, the bill stalls or dies. Step 5, if it's a nomination or a category with a lower threshold, cloture might only need a simple majority. That's where the nuclear option history matters. And that's why during these fights, you'll hear phrases like, you don't have the votes. You need one more senator. They're negotiating changes. They might go nuclear. Translation, they're trying to control whether the Senate can stop talking and start voting. So why does this matter to you? This matters because the Senate is a bottleneck for stuff that actually hits our lives. Healthcare prices, border policy, voting access, abortion rules, who becomes a federal judge, even whether agencies can function because key jobs are filled. The filibuster decides whether 41 senators can block action, even if the other side has 59. That's a big deal in a country this large. And here's the actionable part. When you see a headline saying Senate fails to pass a bill, look for the cloture vote. Did it fail at 49 to 51 or did it fail at 55 to 45? Because those are very different stories. One is they didn't have a majority, and the other is they didn't have the 60 votes to end debate. That one detail tells you who has the leverage and what kind of deal, if any, could happen next. So let me ask you, should the Senate keep the filibuster for most bills? Or should it be easier to end debate and pass things with a simple majority? Drop your take in the comments and tell me which upcoming Senate fight you want us to break down using this exact playbook. If this made the filibuster finally click, hit subscribe, because at Project Liberty, we're here to translate the government into normal people language. So next week, we're staying in the how it works lane again and breaking down another piece of congressional chaos you see in the headlines all the time. Because once you understand the rules, the drama gets a lot less mysterious. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you on the next one.